So before I ride another kilometre, these lovely GP4000S2s are going onto the bike. Hello again, YouTube. Well, little update for you on the Evo, not on the bike, but on something I fitted to it, which is tyres. I did have on here a set of Continental Attack Force tyres. So they were my racing set basically, and lovely tyres. They're like Continental's black chili compound, so they're the same compound as say a GP4000. They roll beautifully. They've got really cool logos on them as well. I'll get some shots of those for you. But they come with a slightly slimmer front tyre for aerodynamics and a slightly fatter back tyre for the rear. And I've had them on there, fitted them just before Vichy, so I've had them on there since 2016 and they've done a ton of miles. And as certain Continental tyres are one to do, I understand from the reviews, I noticed a couple of weekends ago that the sidewall was blowing out. So I was in a fix because I was going out on a 70 miler the day after with the SMB boys and needed some tyres on there. And the only real spare set of tyres I had to hand were these Zaffiro slicks, Vittoria Zaffiro slicks that came with the Evo as part of the standard package. Now I wasn't bothered about that because I'd ridden them, they felt quite grippy, they felt quite secure, and I knew they were heavier, but I didn't think it'd make a ton of difference. So I fitted them. In short, here's the reason you shouldn't buy cheap tyres. Okay, so here we've got the details for the Vittoria Zaffiro Slick 2 wired tyre. So these are the ones that came free with the Planet X. These were the ones that fitted as standard equipment. You can't argue with the price, $5.99. Well, I mean, what can you get for under 10 quid these days? So absolutely smacking value for $5.99. But right, here's the deal. Weight, 340 grams per tyre. So let's nip across to Wiggle, where I got my GP4000S2s. And I would really recommend, if you're going to buy these tyres, go to Wiggle and you can get this deal. You can get, 55 quid for a pair. That's really not bad going, is it? So here for me is the deal. 225 per tyre. So the weight, 225 there. And on these, 340. Do the math. Okay, so that's quite a weight difference between the two tyres. Also, I find that the Vittoria has got considerably more rolling resistance, and I don't know, there's just something about the GP4000 which it just feels an all-round better tyre. Well, I mean, it is an all-round better tyre. Of course, when you buy the Continental, you know you're getting a quality product here. And, like all of their higher end tyres, it's got their black chili compound, it's got their breakers in there to give you some puncture protection. Now, here is a difference between the two tyres, okay? You're going to get some puncture protection with the GP4000. I think you'll probably get a hell of a lot more puncture protection with the Zaffiro, so that's worth bearing in mind. And even though I have concluded that the Zaffiros really don't have a place on my bike at the moment, I'm not throwing them away because I think they'll be a really good winter tyre. Or actually, do you know what? They'd make a fantastic commuter tyre because they're one of these tyres where when you go out on your bike, you want to really enjoy it, but these take the enjoyment away. Well, I tell you what, when you're commuting, you don't really, enjoyment isn't high on your list of priorities, is it? Just getting there is high on your list of priorities. And if you look at how many layers these things have got, you'd need a Magnum 44 or something to puncture these, whereas the GP4000s are going to be just a little bit more precious, I think. So it's horses for courses, isn't it? So there are the two schools of thought on the difference that a heavy tyre makes to your wheel, or the difference that a heavy wheel makes to your bike. And this comes down to rotating weight. So if you do any meaningful research on this, there seems to be a consensus of opinion that yes, rotating weight on a wheel does make a difference, but it only makes a difference when the wheel's accelerating. Totally get that. And I've watched a couple of videos online where the conclusion seems to be, so because you've got that increase in effort, you know, the rotating weight is going to give you some increase in effort, but only when you're accelerating the wheel. It doesn't really matter, because once the wheel's up to speed and rolling, then you're not preserve that energy, you're not accelerating, and you only had the momentary effort whilst you're increasing the speed of the wheel. And I totally get that. And I think that if you were going to ride a Grand Tour and sit all day long at sort of 50 kilometers an hour in a peloton, you know, you've done your acceleration, you just sit there and cruise along, maintaining a more or less stable speed, then that is fine. You know, an increase in wheel weight isn't going to make that much difference to you. However, if you're a rider like me, and I would consider myself to be like an amateur recreational rider, my rides, I think, are punctuated by mini accelerations throughout them. Okay, so I'll give you an example. You start riding, you come to a bend, you slow down, you accelerate out of the bend, you find a pothole, you go around it, you accelerate away from the pothole, you come to a junction, you slow down, you accelerate, you chat with your mates, you slow down a little bit, you accelerate. So what I would say is that throughout one of my rides, there are all these little periods of micro acceleration, for lack of a better way of putting it. And what I find is that, or what I found with these Vittoria Zaffiro tyres, is that that becomes cumulative. So the first time I rode these tyres meaningfully was on a 60-mile ride, and at the end of it I was absolutely shot. So you think about it, throughout a 60-mile ride you've got tons of times where you're slowing down, increasing, slowing down, increasing, you know. So you've got all these little accelerations, and we've already said that the rotating weight is going to be felt when you accelerate, so you're feeling it every time you accelerate. Let's have a look at some data from today's ride. So you can see here, right, we've got some data from today's ride. I should really put some smoothing on this, I guess. But what you can see is there's lots of periods where power is increasing and speed is increasing. So to me, that's acceleration, or it's the acceleration you're going to feel because you're increasing your speed whilst you're increasing your effort. So these are the ones that you're going to feel. And I actually watched a GCN video where they said, you know, they began by saying rotating weight on a wheel is worth 3 times its equivalent on the frame. So think about these tyres and what we've already found out about the weight difference on them. So what was it? It was, I think, something like 125 per tyre, something like that difference, 125 grams. So across 2 tyres, that's 250 grams. So let's say that that is worth 3 times its equivalent weight, that's 750 grams. Well, to me, that's a full bidon. So every time you've got one of these micro accelerations going on, you're feeling the equivalent of another full bidon of water on the frame. Simplistic way of looking at it. And I know this is going to start a debate, and I know there's going to be a lot of people more versed in this and able to explain and analyse the physics than me. But when you combine that with something like a cheap tyre like the Zaffiro, where it's got a lot more rolling resistance, okay, I think that makes the situation even more noticeable, because every time you back off, the rolling resistance will slow the tyre quicker. So you'll have more effort to do when you accelerate. So really, to me, you know, you've got the perfect storm there. You've got a tyre that will slow itself down very quickly, a tyre that weighs a lot more, and you're going to feel the resistance on the tyre, and you're going to feel that increase in rolling weight every time, or rotating weight rather, every time you accelerate it. And you're going to be accelerating it probably hundreds, maybe thousands of times, whether you realise it or not, throughout a ride. So that's kind of my, you know, bar stool take on the physics associated with this. Like I say, I think that's going to start a debate, and I'd welcome it actually, because if somebody can convince me otherwise, I'd really like to be convinced otherwise. What I can tell you is that I have really felt the difference in these tyres, and putting the GP4000s on today was an absolute revelation. The bike has never felt so good. I mean that, even with the old what were they, attack force combo on there, the bike has never felt so good. So you know, that's really all I can say. And what I saw today was, you know, for similar conditions that I've been riding all week, average speed was probably 2 miles an hour quicker than everything I've been riding all the week. Another thing that I think is worth bearing in mind is that I find when you put a component on the bike that slows it down or saps power away from it or does something like that, it's not just the fact that you're losing the power, but it kind of messes with your head as well. So like, you know, I was riding these tyres and I was just thinking, Jesus, it can't just be that increase in weight on the tyre that's doing this. Have I suddenly become a crap rider? Possibly, yeah. But, you know, have I become a crap-er rider than I am already? And that really messes with your head. And the trouble is, once you get those thoughts in your head, they become corrosive. And throughout the ride, what they do is they just eat away at you. And they make a hard ride even harder. So, there we have it. My thoughts on the Vittoria Zaffiro Slick 2 tyre. How would I summarise it? Well, for £6, what can you get for £6? You can't get a lot. And I'd say, actually, in terms of what you get here, you get a lot of tyre for your money for £6. So don't discount them. Although I've concluded that there's no place for them currently on my bike, because I really want to enjoy this bike through summer, and I really have felt the difference that these tyres have made to it just in the few weeks that I've been riding them. I'd say that there is a place for them. I'd say that they are a fantastic tyre to go on something like your winter trainer or even better, a winter commuting bike, where you just want to get through a ride without getting a puncture, and with a tyre that's going to last you plenty of time and go the distance. And also give you a bit of confidence through the corners, especially on those wet mornings. And I think that the Zaffiro Slick definitely does that. I want to compare it with the GP4000SII. Well, there really is no comparison. These tyres are in a different league, and you know, they are 10 times the price. So what can you say about that? In fact, no, they're not 10 times the price, are they? They're 5 times the price, because I got 2 of them for £55. So, you know, actually in those terms, they don't look like bad value, do they? They roll beautifully. They feel really grippy and dependable through the corners. And the first ride I had on them this morning was in wet conditions, and that's a real test of a tyre, isn't it? So I think that these GP4000S2s have become my go-to tyre. Yeah, they're probably going to be a little bit more puncture prone than the Zaffiros, but I can really live with that because the bike feels transformed. My opinion, £55 well spent.